welcome to the April 15th council meeting. We'll begin tonight's meeting with our flag salute. At this time, I'd like to invite the Chino Police Department Explorer Honor Guard, led by Explorer Mendez, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please stand.
I would now like to present the Chino Police Explorers Honor Guard. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good job. Our first proclamation is National Public Safety Communications Week. Every year during the second week of April, we honor the public safety telecommunications personnel who help keep our communities safe. I'd like to call up Chief Menson and the Chino Police Department staff. Whereas emergencies can strike at any time, and when they do, we rely on the vigilance and preparedness of professional public safety dispatchers. And whereas professional public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services and serve as that vital link between the citizen and the first responder who may apprehend a criminal, save their possessions from fire, and save their life or life of a loved one. The safety and effectiveness of our officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information provided by the dispatcher. The professional dispatchers of the Chino Police Department answered over 125,048 calls in 2024, exhibiting compassion, understanding, professionalism during the performance of their job and contributing substantially to the high-quality public safety services provided by the Chino Police Department. The United States Congress has designated the second full week of April as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week to honor these men and women and their crucial role in protecting life and property. The City of Chino proudly recognizes these dedicated professionals and commend them for the past 32 years of service, as well as their continued commitment to providing quality, caring service to the Chino community. Now, therefore, I, Eunice M. Ulloa, Mayor of the City of Chino, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe, do hereby proclaim 32 years of quality community service from Chino's public safety dispatchers and recognize April 13th to the 19th, 2025 as National Public Safety Telecommuters Week. Chief?
Well, thank you so much, Mayor, for the proclamation. So let me introduce this is Jennifer and Brenda. They are dispatch supervisors. This is Fernando, Mandy, Madison, and Samantha. They are public safety dispatchers. So we are just amazed by the work that they do every single day. So they answer over 350 calls every single day. And you have to go no further, and it's the ultimate multitasking. You go no further than literally just, I think, a couple hours ago. We received a call of a 4-year-old, a frantic parent calling that their 4-year-old was kidnapped. And you can imagine how frantic that call is and immediately taking the 911 call. Just several minutes later, we receive another call of an injury traffic collision about a mile away. And so we have two very high priority, very chaotic calls going on at one time. And I think we have 4 dispatchers that are in the center that are managing that. Now, thank God, the call of the kidnapping was just a child that went upstairs and the parent didn't know it, so it was not a kidnapping. But as you can imagine, as that call's coming in and the stress level of the parent that's calling, and then on top of the injury traffic collision where we now have our dispatchers logging on to our city cameras, they have view of the traffic collision and providing that information to the responding emergency medical and police officers. So the job that they do, it amazes me. We had a program recently where we were able to sit at our desk and listen to the 911 calls coming in. And that really was a front row seat to see the work that they do every day. So we so appreciate them. They're such a key part in our overall of keeping our community safe. So thank you to the mayor and the council for presenting this to them today.
Oops, one more. Ryan has to be the last one.
At least I'm looking at his camera.
True. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, you're welcome. So welcome. You know, when you have that call and you're panicked and you call in, I don't know how they stay so calm with everything, but they're truly lifesavers. Okay, next, we have Donate Life Month. Donate Life Month is observed every April to raise awareness about eye, organ, and tissue donation that could save the life of someone in need. I'd like to call it Mr. Robert Ralston, One Legacy Ambassador. Robert is with us every year and has quite a story to tell. Welcome back. Oh, I know, honey. It's called age. Whereas organ, eye, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need. More than 103,000 individuals nationwide and more than 23,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list. And on average, 17 people die every day while waiting. The need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic, Latino, and African American communities. A single individual's donation of the heart, lungs, liver, kidney, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others. Deceased organ donors saved more than 46,000 lives last year. Any person can register to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor regardless of age or medical conditions. Being a registered donor does not impact the quality of life-saving medical care or a person receives in an emergency. California residents can sign up to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor when applying for or receiving and renewing their driver's license or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. California residents can sign up with the Donate Live California Donor Registry online at any time by visiting www.donatelivecalifornia.org or, for Spanish speakers, www.donvidacalifornia.org. Whereas California residents can sign up to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor when applying for or renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Whereas California residents interested in saving a life through living kidney donation may visit www.livingdonationcalifornia.org. Now therefore be it resolved that in recognition of National Donate Life Month, the month of April 2025 is hereby proclaimed DMV/Donate Life Month in the city of Chino. And in doing so, we encourage all the Californians to check yes online or when applying or renewing their driver's license or ID card at the DMV.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor Eunice Uloa, a longtime friend now, I'm really proud to say, and the esteemed council members. My life was saved December 18th, 2011. By the grace of God, miracle of modern medicine, and a man from Tennessee and his donor family. So important to remember the donor family. A lot of times when people meet their demise and they're about to cross over, us from Donate Life will go and say, would you like to be an organ donor? And that's not the time for your family members to find out you have a pink dot on your license. Tell them ahead of time. You got the pink dot, you've already made this decision. Make that moment easier for them. And there's so many other things that we can discuss here. Like Eunice had said, tonight by midnight, 17 people will run out of time. The phone won't ring for them. It rang for me. There's almost 104,000 people in the country waiting, and you could fill the Rose Bowl in the whole parking lot with the number of people waiting for the phone to ring. I was on that transplant list for 3 years, and the phone finally did ring for me. So I made sure that since God let me live, I'd make it worth his while. And here we are. It's all about raising awareness. This is the most important part of the journey. That pink dot, if you don't have it on your license, find out about it. There's so many other information. There's other things I could tell you about. I know I don't have that much time to discuss it all, but this proclamation will be proudly displayed at the Run Walk California Donate Life One Legacy Run Walk at Azusa Pacific College on April 25th. And about 15,000 people show up for this run walk every year. They have food and vendors and games and toys. There's a donors memorial garden where all the recent donors are memorialized. All the proclamations given by our wonderful mayors are on display. And so it's a really great day. They had a boy band there last year, and I'm not into boy bands, but everybody was going, oh, wow. But anyways, they have good entertainment, good food, and it's a good time, and it really is a great thing. So please, spread the word, get that Donate Life pink dot on your driver's license. I gave some of my business cards to Natalie, and I've been lucky enough to guide people in the right direction since I've been an ambassador for 14 years now. A lot of people don't know about kidney chains. If you guys, I'm sure there's somebody in this room has a relative that's on dialysis, and they may already be on a transplant waiting list. There's a thing called a kidney chain, and if you have relatives that want to donate to you, but you weren't a match for your uncle or your father or your brother or your sister, you can donate to a kidney chain, which is a much smaller group of people. It's a microcosm of people that are on that kidney transplant waiting list, and you get that transplant within a year instead of being on dialysis for 5 or 8 years. It's really good information to have. I would have died waiting on a liver transplant. I was at Scripps in La Jolla in San Diego, Taj Mahal of hospitals, and I was still 100 times down the list. There was 99 people sicker than I was, and I was having 12 liters of fluid drained off my stomach every Thursday. And picture that, 6 2-liter bottles, and stretch your skin over it every Thursday. Officer's wife, who was also on the transplant waiting list, followed my wife out to the car and said, get your husband dual listed. Scripps never mentioned getting dual listed. They had a lot of money and time invested in me, and they wanted me to have the transplant there. I'm not dissing Scripps for it, but I was their patient. I found out about getting dual listed, found out where my insurance was also good, and I got my transplant in Memphis, Tennessee in 3 months. It's a no helmet state. Unfortunately, that makes for a lot more people with brain injuries. And that saved my life. I was given 6 months to live, and they said, get your affairs in order. If something doesn't pop for you in the next 6 months, time's up. And I got enlisted after that conversation with that officer's wife, to my wife, and I got my transplant within 3 months in Memphis, Tennessee. Happened to be the same place Steve Jobs got his liver transplant. So I figured, you know what, if it's good enough for his advisors, it's good enough for me and Sue, right? So, but thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. God bless you guys for everything you do, and thank you for giving me time to spill my guts, tell my story.
It's always a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much.
He's truly a blessing, and everyone, if you don't have the pink dot, please think about getting it, because it really is a worthwhile program. Okay, next we have the recognition of our 2025 Chino Days Art, Writing, and Chalk Art Award recipients. As part of Chino Days, students enrolled in the Chino Valley Unified School District and Chino residents were encouraged to participate in Chino Days Art, Writing, and Chalk Art Contest. The contests were conducted in collaboration with the Chino Cultural Foundation and Chino Healthy Chino. This year's art and writing theme was Live for Your Healthiest Life, and the chalk art theme was Chino. Winners were selected based on age and grade categories, and contest entries were displayed at the Chino Days event. I'd like to call up Chino Days Art, Writing, and Art Contest Committee Lead, Carrie Franco.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor Ulloa, members of the council, thank you so much for recognizing the winners today. When you hear me call your name, please come on up. For the Chino Days Art and Writing winners, we had art category, 5 to 7-year-olds. Third place, Skylar Yu. Same category, second place, William Jiang. And first place, Olivia Lee. For the age category, 8 to 10 years old, third place, Yiwan Tao. Second place, Claire Chin. And first place, Olivia Hong. I don't believe she's here tonight. For the art category, 11 to 13, third place, Zoe Liu. Second place, Shrishubhav Pinjala. And first place, Harmony Flores. For the art category, 14 to 17, third place, Andrew Lee. Second place, Ariel Batista. And first place, Yuna Choi. For the writing category, grades 7 through 9th, third place, Dominic Ree. Second place, Rachel Lee. And first place, Parthvi Naswa. That is all of our winners for the art and writing contest. Please come on up. We're going to take a quick picture. It looks like it. Come here. You can come up. What's your name? Claire. Yes, you are here. Come on up, Claire. Congratulations. I don't know how you're going to do it. Try to get tight. Yeah. Maybe the bigger kids can come behind. Hold on, we've got our parents. Thank you so much. And now for our chalk art winners. For our adult category, second place, Smita Patil. And first place, Julio Gomez. For our teen category, third place, Athena Paredes. I don't believe she's here. Athena's not here. For our second place, Olivia Munoz. And our first place, Kaylin Abeda. For our youth category, third place, Aubrey Panopio. For our second place, Duo Lynn. And our first place, Sarah Savant. Thank you to all of my Chino Chalk winners. Parents. Thank you so much, everybody. You can have a seat.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much, Carrie. Our Mayor's Home Beautification Award for this month is Stephanie Bradhurst. She lives at 6322 Dalton Street. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it this evening, but we will be providing her with her certificate and photo and all the little memorabilia that we have to give. Prior to the council meeting, we did have a closed session. I'd like to ask our city attorney to please give us a report out of that meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and all those present. The City Council met in closed session as announced by the Mayor and held a discussion as to the two items listed on the closed session portion of the agenda, beginning with item number 1, the liability claims, the workers' compensation claimant Sean Witham. City Council received a briefing, provided unanimous direction, and no further reportable action was taken on that matter. Item number 2, conference with labor negotiator concerning the various employer organizations that were previously announced and listed on the agenda. City Council received a briefing, provided direction, no further reportable action was taken. That concludes the report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. City Manager Wright, do we have any agenda additions or revisions?
No changes, Mayor.
Thank you. Under information within our packet is our external agency report for April 15th. I encourage you all to access that. It has some very interesting information in it. Next, under public announcements, calling all car enthusiasts. Get ready for the Kiwanis Cornfeed Run Car Show and Cruise. Join us on Saturday, April 26th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Chino City Hall for one of the most anticipated car shows in the region. Hosted by the Chino Kiwanis Club, this annual event brings together hundreds of beautifully restored classic cars and trucks for a full day of cruising, community, and nostalgia. For more information, visit www.chinokiwanis.com and make plans to roll into one of Chino's signature springtime traditions. Next, join us as we celebrate our planet during the 16th Annual Earth Day celebration on Thursday, April 17th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Chino Creek Wetlands and Educational Park, located at 6075 Kimball Avenue in Chino. In partnership with the Inland Empire Utilities Agency, this free and exciting event will feature educational activities, animal encounters, train rides around the park, environmental exhibits, plant and compost education, water-saving technology, free giveaways, and more. Learn more by visiting cityofchino.org/Earth Day. Finally, Chino cyclists of all ages are encouraged and invited to join us for a beautiful morning bike ride during our annual Chino Bike Day on Saturday, May 10th from 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Ayala Park. Chino Bike Day is a fun and family-friendly morning featuring helmet giveaways and bike registration, a bike obstacle course, kids' activities and crafts, and a family bike ride led by the Chino Police Department at 9:30. For more information, call the Carolyn Owens Community Center at 909-334-3258, and we'll see you there. Now this evening, we're going to be adjourning in the memory of Judge Youngquist. Finally, we close this evening meeting in memory of retired Judge Raymond Charles Youngquist. Raymond Youngquist was a longtime attorney, judge, and respected and beloved member of the community. He was born on July 17, 1934 in Santa Monica and served as an altar boy at the Catholic Church for 4 years. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the United States Air Force, achieving the position of Staff Sergeant with the military police, and was stationed in England. In 1959, Judge Youngquist obtained his bachelor's degree from Los Angeles State College, now Cal State LA. He subsequently served with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department as a deputy sheriff while attending and then graduating from USC Law School in 1964. He became a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney and later opened his private law firm in Pomona, where he practiced for 15 years, specializing in criminal defense. In 1990, Governor George Deukmejian appointed him to the San Bernardino Municipal Court in Chino. In 1995, Governor Pete Wilson appointed him as Superior Court Judge in San Bernardino County, where he served for over 15 years. In addition to being highly respected in the legal profession, he was considered by many a Renaissance man. He played chess, collected baseball cards and stamps, and was an accomplished pianist. Judge Youngquist loved God, his family, and his country in that order, as reflected throughout his life. He died on March 30th, 2025, peacefully at home with his beloved wife of 68 years, Alice Youngquist. He's survived by Alice, their daughter Debbie Carnes, son Eric J. Youngquist, Esquire, and daughter-in-law Christy Hudson Youngquist, 4 granddaughters, a grandson, and a grandson-in-law, 3 great-grandsons, and 1 great-granddaughter. Our condolences to Alice and the extended Youngquist family on the loss of a remarkable family man and an esteemed member of the legal and Chino communities. This evening, we honor the man and his contributions to the city of Chino, San Bernardino County, and its residents. Next on the agenda is public communication. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the council about items that are not on the agenda, and therefore we cannot take action on anything that's not on the agenda. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening. I'd first like to point out that on our agenda this evening is an appeal of the Planning Commission's determination for use of floor area ratio in the mixed-use overlays. The Euclid-Schaefer project is not on the agenda this evening and therefore cannot be addressed. If you would like to comment about the Euclid-Schaefer development, you may do so during our public comment period where community members discuss items that are not on the agenda. However, if you would like your comments to be part of the record for that project, you would have to provide those comments when this project comes before the Planning Commission at an unscheduled later date. We legally cannot make comments on that item because it is not a project before us. The Euclid-Schaefer development is undergoing its own review and approval process independent of the action taken this evening. You can learn more and receive updates about that project at cityofchino.org/Orbis. Now I'm going to call on the written request to speak. Our first written request to speak is Pastor Dustin Harrison from Calvary Chapel, Chino Valley. He's going to leave us in an invocation if you would like to join.
Thank you. Please join me as we pray. And Lord, there's so much for our city that we want to lift to you in prayer. Lord, we lift the mayor, the council, all those that lead this city. Lord, we also pray for their families. We pray for strength and guidance. We pray for wisdom. Lord, we pray for all the first responders, Lord, and the firefighters, the officers, Lord. And Lord, just even hearing earlier of all the calls that our first responders have to take in. And so, Lord, those dispatchers, Lord, we pray for them and as they hear so much trauma and so much hardships. Lord, may you be the center of this community, Lord. May you bring hope. Lord, I pray for the schools. I pray that the youth, the little ones, Lord, that they would grow to know what hope is, that there would be unity in this community, Lord. I thank you that I grew up here and had the privilege, Lord, to make this town, this city, this place my home, Lord, as I'm raising my daughters here. And so, Lord, I just pray that you would just continue to bless Chino, Lord, and bless its leadership. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, before I go to the next written request to speak, I understand that we have some students in the audience that are here on assignment from their school. So if you are here, we require you to come up to the lectern, give us your name of your school, and the class that you're taking, and your teacher's name. So I know there's students out there, I've been told, so it's time for you to get up and come up. Nobody's moving. Here they come. They have to have a record of it, otherwise they don't get credit at class. Okay, your name?
Hi, my name's Riley Hahn, and we're here from Ontario Christian.
Okay.
I'm Selena Ulloa. I'm Sophie Schroeder.
Okay, now the class
Government.
and their teacher.
Zaidama, Mr. Zaidama.
Well, thank you for being with us this evening. I hope it's educational for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Takes a lot of nerve for kids to come up. Okay, now again, I have comments here on Fern and Schaefer project. You know we cannot make comments, and there will not be a public record of this. Steve, is it Eccles? Eccles. Eccles, okay.
Good evening. I just wanted to speak briefly on the Fern Schaefer project. That project has been a sore matter since day one, obviously. The residents in that area, that neighborhood, including myself, I've been there since 1992, and I just want to say one thing. That corner is not the place for that project, and you guys should all be ashamed of yourself for even considering such a project in that corner. Thanks.
Greg Duncan?
Hi, I'm here again. And you know, the Facebook group. I've never been involved in any cause with the city. I've never come up to speak with people about anything about the government. Starting this Facebook group, realized how strong social media is. Chino Champion has a circulation of 42,000 people, and Chino Connects has 53,000. There's a lot of opinions out there. Unfortunately, after starting this, I'm really disappointed and saddened by the opinions expressed by the respondents regarding the Eden development. The general consensus is that the citizens mistrust and are dissatisfied with the people we have either hired or elected to represent our interests. This side of the room seems to be much more concerned with the rights of the developers than with the rights of the people who sign their paychecks. And you in front of me, this is your chance to prove to people that who elected you that you will do your job and protect us from the developer raping our community. Curtis, this is your district. We're all really watching you. Also, on a side note, the city should not consider purchasing the land at Central and Francis. This parcel is in the mayor's backyard, and this deal stinks to high heaven and screams privilege and abuse of power. Thank you.
Okay, Bob Nigg, you filled out a paper, but I think you're going to be speaking on your item. Do you also want to speak during public? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm a strong believer in transparency and accountability, and that's why I want to talk tonight. It's not on this appeal. I'll have enough to say on that coming up. But back in November 19th, I came before you when you were going to pass ordinance, I believe, 2503, and you guys did a good job in accepting a call for review. I'm really here to ask what's going on with that. I've met with Linda and Warren. It's been several months, and they said we were going to change the height and take out the storage facilities on those that haven't started yet. But they had to work with HCD in order to adjust that 26 house minimum density. And I understand that's a difficult process. But if you approach a bureaucracy with good information, you can probably get a better deal than what we sent up there. In March of 2023, March 6th, there was a Planning Commission meeting which was for the passage of 23008. 2 weeks later, it was changed. That's when the storage facilities, the increased heights, and the change in density was around. I've gone through the report from Kyson Master dated March 15th, created 10 days after the March 6th, less than 10 days. In that report, on page 5, it said recommended inclusionary housing requirements, low income requirement, overlay zone apartment district. Density 20 units, 9%. Density units per acre 30% at 13%. We then accepted a 26 house density at 9%. That's still financially feasible for the developer. It's better. But this report said it could be 20. Then you look at the math. They did a math calculation in order to decide financial inclusion of feasibility for the developers. They used a 4-acre thing and so many feet per acre of land and land improvement cost. Comes up to $45 an acre. You take a 10.36 acre site, times that out by 45, by 43, 560 feet per acre, you come over $20 million in land cost. If that developer is only using 5 of those acres for the apartment complex, he just got a $10 million discount. That was not calculated in this study. Those are items that you should listen to the public, have more open communication instead of waiting till 72 hours before a meeting, and there can be a 500-page report, and who's going to be able to go through that? There needs to be greater communication between the planning department and the public. And I appreciate everything Linda's been doing. I like Warren, but we have disagreements. That's what's coming up later on. But what I'm asking is, have some more public input when these things happen. What we have now is a development that nobody seems to want, except the developer. And so that's my thing. I'm asking, what is the status of the call for review, and when are we gonna hear something? Because another developer in the meantime can come in and say, I'm gonna build a 55-foot building, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna put a storage facility in there because you haven't changed the code. That's my comments. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Now, there's another written request that has come in, but there's no name. So it was whoever just turned this green slip in. Okay, ma'am, if you'd give us your name, please. And I don't know if you were here in the very beginning, but we cannot make any comments or take any action because that project is not on our agenda.
Yes, when I heard your comments, that's why I changed and ran in this way, because it wasn't going to work the other way.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Maria Torres. I'm a city member here in Chino, and or a resident of Chino. Mayor, thank you. Council members, thank you so much for your time. I know I've spoken before, and it may sound like a broken record, but again, it's coming from somebody that lives right where the project is being built. I'm literally on the other side of the brick wall. I'll see it the whole time it happens. There's a lot of, with the density and so forth of the Orbis project, there's a lot of things that we're losing. There's gonna be more. Some of the things that we lose especially is the privacy. As high as it is right now, I have my blinds set to be downward this way so that the sun can come in and so forth. Now I'm gonna be worried that people are, because we live in a reach out and touch your neighbor zone, okay? That they're gonna say, oh, look, Maria's drooling today. That's how close we're gonna be, okay? So then if I put it the other way, then people are gonna be looking up either way. So the privacy, the parking, I understand there was a parking study. I'm not quite sure what the exact results are. We just keep hearing, according to the study, this. But factual information I have not really seen to know what the study specific to that area is, has covered or has come out with. And then right now, before this project is even in existence, we have traffic up Euclid constantly with the big trucks, with the traffic, the way the lines are set up, the lanes and so forth. Several accidents have happened, always on either the Euclid Schaefer corner or the Chino. My son was actually in one of those accidents. Somebody turned into him. The lines don't line up. And so these are things I want to make sure that you're aware of. My biggest concern also with the parking is that I know at one of the previous meetings I attended, I think it was the one at the church, the community meeting, it was announced that there was a 1.5 ratio for parking. I don't know how you get half a car, but anyways, the way the parking is set up now in our development, we're allowed 7 parking times, and it's 1 car only. So if you have 3 visitors that are gonna spend the night and they have different cars, you use 3 up, and you've got a whole rest of the month to only for 4. So I've gotten to the point where my family doesn't get to come spend the night and spend the weekend with me, or if they do, I'm asking neighbors, hey, can we park in your driveway? Can we do this? If we park across the street on Gerd, we're one of the victims that got a broken window 2 years ago. By the time the car window was fixed, the car got towed because the window was broken. Somebody reported it and the police came, and it was a $1,000 fiasco. Yeah, for that whole thing. And it was just from Friday morning to Monday, and then the window fixed. And it's like, we can't, we're almost feeling like we're held hostages. You know, HOAs are great. They help keep the upkeep and the vision of the community, but there's reality. And if you bring in a ginormous build like that in that area and saturate on top of what we're already dealing with, those of us that are stuck there to live there, and I really don't want to leave. I love Chino. I thought it was the greatest move I ever made, and now I'm like, I'm stuck, and more so in a box, you know. So if you could please consider our pleas, really do the due diligence. You know, I voted for you guys, everybody that's sitting here, and I'm hoping that you're reading the stuff and not having staff tell you their interpretation, but actually studying it. As much controversy as we've been coming and talking with you and asking for your time, if you could please make sure that you are reading everything that, and meet us at the table, so I really would appreciate your time.
Okay, those are the written requests we have to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address an item that is not on the agenda?
My name is Susan Fegedy, but these are not my words. I was asked to read this to all of you. It's from resident Zachary Sennett. He lives off of Euclid and Chino in the Crystal Lane development. He moved here in 2022, and he loves it. Before his time moving to Chino, he spent 6 years in the Navy. During his 6 years in the Navy, he served on board the USS Key West, a Los Angeles class submarine, as a nuclear reactor operator on Guam. Zachary spent over a year of his life underwater. The longest, in fact, was 62 straight days underwater. I have operated in waters off the coast of foreign countries where if they found us, we would have been depth charged before asking questions. Yet I consider myself one of the lucky ones who served their country. I have met many soldiers and Marines, some of my family included, who have fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, who suffer from PTSD, whose eyes have seen more horrors than anyone of us dare to comprehend, just so that we may stand here today and argue about an apartment complex planned in our neighborhood. These are Zachary's words. I speak on this, of course, to remind all of us what duty and sacrifice means to not only our loved ones, but to our surrounding community. I am not here to question your duty or sacrifice, Mayor and Council members, as a quick search on our city's website shows that all of you have shown significant dedication to the city of Chino in your biographies as public servants yourself. I stand before you today to ask that you sacrifice a little bit more, as is part of your duty and responsibility as the heads of our city. Over the last few months, you have seen the outcry from our community, the level of participation, the level of investigation the townsfolk has brought on to this proposed project. You cannot be blind and say this is normal backlash. This project is a stepping stone for future developments in our city. I was not here when the city made the move from farmlands to a suburban city. I probably was not born when that transition started. I was, not him. And now, some may say we are on the precipice of the next large transition, from a suburban city to a large vertical metropolitan that resembles urban areas like LA, Corona, or Riverside. We as a community know that you, council members, fully understand the floodgates will open for this transition if this project is to be approved without further scrutiny and changes. The fact of the matter is this: we as a community know this project will move forward. This is inevitable. However, there are parts of the project that needs to be addressed before we are to be moving forward, such as the storage facility at large. This is one of the driving factors that we as a community feel will change the culture of this city. From what you hear and have heard from the focus group and other community members, you can understand that this issue is more complex, more sophisticated than a simple approval. There are legal and community questions that need to be addressed as to set the tone for future projects. Mayor and council members, I ask two things from you from your time tonight. I ask that you do your due diligence. Do what is asked of you as our heads of our city, our elected officials who represent us citizens of Chino, and issue a fact finding to ensure that this Eden project has followed the full legal process for approval while meeting the community's demands to properly integrate it into the vision of our city. Speaking like this in large group settings has reached its limit in productivity. At this point, you know how we as a community feel about the project and how Orbis has made minor adjustments to the outcry. We as a whole, from the mayor, council members, planning committee, community members, and Orbis, need to sit down and truly have a productive business-style meeting to make the appropriate changes. 2 to 10 minute speeches from angry community members and Orbis attempting to make a rebuttal behind those speeches is not conducive to forward progress. Thank you for your time and presenting me the opportunity to speak. Now, me, Susan Fekete, will add this. These are my words. As many of you know, I worked on the D.R. Horton development with our former city planner, Brent Arnold, and other community members. Some of them are out here in the audience. We did sit down with D.R. Horton. We had many meetings. We worked through this together, and they were productive. We, as a community, got a development that is great, and everyone is pleased except for the residents that live there because of the parking. I will agree, that is a mess. And they do park on Gerd and our other city streets near our houses. So besides the parking, which also needs to be addressed in the Eden development, there is an opportunity for us as a community with the developer to sit down and get something that is
Mayor, the
good
time
for
has
the community.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Daniel Medrano. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Fern Schaefer project. One of the things I'd like to talk about is that we should consider potentially making this back as it was originally designated as a commercial lot. Part of the issue is the fact that the city is now saying we are having financial issues. We need more revenue to the city. One of the ways the city gets revenue is through sales tax. Well, a storage facility and the apartment complex bring no sales tax revenue to the city. One of the other things was in the article that came out in the Chino Champion and others, said that the reason why it was zoned commercial was the fact that people from both Ontario and Chino would bring in revenue there if there was other places like the Stater Brothers and other, there's some restaurants and other retail facilities. So I today say we need to at least get rid of the storage facility because it's too tall and it infringes on the people's privacy in that community right behind it. By doing that, I think we can hopefully reduce the height and that of the affordable housing or the apartments that may have to be put in there based on, what the state's requiring of us. So I think that would be a better use of that land than to have a storage facility that does nothing for us except for the developer. The other thing is I would like to allude is to something that Susan brought up is I was a part of that group on the D.R. Horton project. It worked out really great for us. We sat down, D.R. Horton was open to a lot of the issues we had and concerns. We worked together through it with all of them, and it made a much better place for us. You have to understand, we're very passionate about it because we live in that community right there. It's gonna impact us more than anybody. And to me, it just, we moved to Chino because we really loved the way it was. Everything in that East Chino specific plan was very clear to us, and it really, I was very proud to say, I want to live there. And that's what I keep seeing is that slowly things are being eroded from us, but in our sense, we got to live with it for the next 20 or 30 years, whatever is built there. So I know and I believe that you do definitely want to help us with this. So I appreciate that. And the last thing I want to say is that that 3-acre lot between the Orbis and the D.R. Horton community, we talked about, potentially the city buying other land in the city. Could they consider maybe purchasing that 3-acre lot and putting a park or some green thing as a buffer between those properties? That may be a good thing to do there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there anyone else in the audience that want to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. There was an information item that I meant to review with you before we started the meeting, or before we got to public communication. and I failed to do that, but I would like to bring it up now, and that is, we have an item in our agenda, I believe it's item number 4, where it is a report on priority state and federal legislative issues. I encourage you to access that report and watch what's going on in Sacramento. And I'm going to tell you about a bill right now that's pending. A lot of the actions up in Sacramento affect what we do every day at a city level. And yet the same legislators get elected without opposition, without people understanding what they're doing. This current bill, it's SB 79, and it's by Wiener. It's called a transit-oriented development. Now, SB 79 has not yet been set for a hearing, but it will be heard in the Senate Housing Committee and the Senate Local Government Committee in the next few weeks. Opposition letters, they're asking, California cities is asking for opposition letters to be sent to everyone's legislators about SB 79. What the bill does, it requires cities to ministerially approve higher density residential projects up to 7 stories near public transit stops, regardless of zoning codes. SB 79 limits the use of local development standards and allows transit agencies full land use authority over residential and commercial development property they own or lease without any requirement that developers build housing, let alone affordable housing. Why it's important? It overrides the state's own mandated local housing elements by forcing cities to approve transit-oriented development projects near specified transit stops, up to 7 stories high and a density of 120 homes per acre, without regard to the community's needs, environmental review, or public input. SB 79 provides transit agencies unlimited land use authority on property they own or have a permanent easement, regardless of the distance from a transit stop, power to determine all aspects of residential and commercial development, including height, density, and design without regard to local zoning or planning, ability to develop 100% commercial projects, even at transit stops, and not provide a single new home. This is another example of what's happening in Sacramento. Now, Wiener is not one of our representatives, but our representatives vote on these bills that are up at Sacramento. So I beg you, please look at item number 4 within our agenda and help us communicate with our legislators that people are unhappy with what Sacramento is doing. Because in some instances, our hands are tied, and they can override us if we don't decide to do what they want done. I just want you to be aware of what's happening, because if we ignore what other legislators are doing in Sacramento, our legislators vote on their bills. So please, please, please start paying attention. Okay, on to the consent calendar. I'm going to pull item number 2 for separate action because Councilmember Florence was on an excused absence, so I would ask for a motion and a second for the balance of the consent calendar.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion from Councilman Lucio.
I'll make the second, Mayor.
Second from Councilmember Comstock. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lucio?
Yes.
Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Councilmember Comstock?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burton?
Yes.
Mayor Ulloa?
Yes. Now, item number 2 were the minutes of our regular meeting April 1st. I would need a motion and a second on that as well. Okay, motion from Mayor Pro Tem Burton. Second from Councilman Lucio. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lucio?
Yes.
Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Councilmember Comstock?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burton?
Yes.
Mayor Ulloa?
Yes. Okay. We're going to move on to item number 11. I've been asked to read this into the record. Before we begin, I want to address public comments for this agenda item. No person may address the City Council for more than 5 minutes during any meeting. If more than 3 persons seek to address the same agenda item or same subject matter, I, the mayor, shall establish a maximum period of time not to exceed 30 minutes for all persons who want to address the same agenda item or same subject matter. Further, the mayor is to determine the order by which the persons may address the same agenda item or same subject matter. Okay, and I have not received more than 3. So, item number 11, appeal to the City Council of the Planning Commission's denial of an appeal of a written decision by the Development Services Director. This item is the appeal of a Planning Commission's denial of an appeal of a written decision by the Development Services Director related to the interpretation of how floor area ratio is enforced for projects located within the mixed-use overlay district. First, I'd like to declare the public hearing open, and I'd like to ask for a staff report from our principal planner, Michael Hitz, and our development director of Development Services, Warren Morillion. I always say your name wrong. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As a reminder, the city recently adopted the 2021-2029 housing element. The housing element describes 2 overlay districts, a mixed-use overlay known as MUO, and an affordable housing overlay known as AHO. The overlay sites were placed on 91 locations throughout the city, following approval of Measure Y by the city's voters in June of 2022. Following approval of the 2 overlays, the City Council adopted formal development standards for the overlays in April of 2023 that were amended in December 2024 due to changes required by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, known as HCD, in order to certify the housing element, which also happened in December of 2024. On December 5th, 2024, the Director of Development Services made a written decision concerning the interpretation of floor area ratio in the MUO. And floor area ratio is known as FAR. This decision came in response to an email received by the city on December 3rd, 2024 by Robert Nigg, the appellant, requesting clarification on FAR. The appellant did not agree with the director's interpretation, and on December 13th, 2024, the appellant submitted an appeal application appealing the written interpretation by the director of the MUO FAR standards identified in the city's zoning code. On February 19th, 2025, the date of the Planning Commission hearing for the appeal, the appellant submitted a second narrative reiterating his arguments from the first appeal and introduced new arguments not previously raised. This submission articulated arguments and offered evidence not previously provided with the original appeal and therefore was not considered with the original appeal. Ultimately, the Planning Commission voted 5-4, 1 against, and 1 abstention to deny the appellant's appeal and uphold the director's interpretation of FAR in the MUO district. Following the February 19th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing, the appellant submitted 2 appeals. The first appeal was requesting that the Planning Commission to issue specific factual findings. The second appeal challenged the Planning Commission's decision to uphold the director's interpretation of the calculation and enforcement of FAR in the MUO district. That's before you tonight. In the first portion of his appeal, the appellant alleges the Planning Commission failed to make specific findings of fact supporting of its decision to uphold the director's interpretation of enforcement and calculation of FAR. Staff reviewed this issue with the city attorney and determined that the appellant is incorrect. Because the appeal to the Planning Commission decision did not relate to an entitlement or project application pending before the city, the Planning Commission is not required to make specific factual findings. In Chapter 20.23150A, Administrative Actions or Decisions, Section 20.23150A.4 states, the decision shall include all required findings of fact. In this case, there's no required findings of fact, so they were not provided. Do you have the presentation? In the second portion of his appeal, the appellant challenged the interpretation by the director that the FAR limitations applies to non-residential uses within the MUO district and cites a wide variety of information to support the argument that FAR should be applied to both residential and non-residential uses within the MUO district. Staff also reviewed this issue with the city attorney and determined that the appellant is also incorrect as it relates to this issue. The city adopted a standard to regulate residential development that does not utilize an FAR requirement in the overlay district for affordable housing. Chapter 20.09090, and those standards apply to the overlay districts regardless of any city code or requirement. This slide is the code section from the overlay standards that clarifies that standards adopted in the zoning code for the MUO supersedes other codes or requirements. So this meaning that this section of 20.09, any standards within that chapter would supersede any other chapters of the zoning code. The next slide shows the table 20.09-07 that outlines the adopted MUO standards for FAR that was adopted by the city in April 2023. This table clearly shows that FAR only applies to non-residential space in the MUO. As a reminder, the Planning Commission agreed that FAR does not apply to residential developments in the MUO by denying the appellant's appeal on February 19th, 2025. Staff also had received an email on April 7th, 2025 from the appellant expressing concerns that the appeal before you tonight was not included in the Chino Champion newspaper. Table 20.23-2 of the city's zoning code specifically notes that as an administrative action, the noticing requirement shall be the same as required for the administrative action or decision being appealed. There is no notice required in the newspaper for directors' decisions or planning commission decisions on appeals related to an interpretation. So no newspaper notice is required. We did receive two correspondents that are at the dais tonight, one from Linda Ziegler and one from the appellant, Mr. Nig. This concludes my portion of the presentation. At this time, I will pass the remainder of the report on to City Attorney Fred Galante.
Thank you. If I may, Mayor and Council, tonight with this appeal, you have two options, essentially. And I'd like to describe each option and explain the impact of each option. Number one is to concur with the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal, in which case the city will continue to apply the rules consistent with the city's current standards. Alternatively, the council can overturn the Planning Commission's decision and agree with the appellant. If so, the Planning Commission and City Council would have to amend the ordinance, which will affect all 91 sites in the overlays. The challenge, though, is that the council cannot approve those revisions to the ordinance without HCD's approval. As the council knows, HCD has been very rigid in its application of state housing laws, including the Housing Accountability Act. The HCD has interpreted those provisions to require that cities pave the way for affordable housing development. This includes not applying a maximum FAR to multifamily housing so as to not disincentivize denser housing. HCD has made it clear that the current zoning ordinance provisions for the overlay is what is required for Chino. As such, HCD will not authorize changes to impose additional hurdles on higher density housing, including limiting multifamily developments to some maximum FAR number. Without HCD approval, if the city proceeds to approve the changes to the ordinance, HCD can take certain actions, including decertifying our housing element as being inconsistent with the proposed ordinance. As the council will recall, we described sort of the parade of horribles that could happen if HCD decides not to certify the housing element, or in this case, decertify the housing element if it's inconsistent with a proposed ordinance that the Planning Commission and Council adopt. Two additional points, and I think this goes to the mayor's point on the legislation proposed by Senator Wiener, that to the extent the state is commanding that certain developments have smoother transitions to approval, this is exactly what the Housing Accountability Act is intended to do. Essentially promote and foster higher density residential development and remove as many limitations as possible that cities can impose on those developments. The goal, even though you as the legislators can't assure that this happens, the goal is to pave the way for higher density that presumably will allow for lower, more affordable units. Two additional points I'd like to make. The applicant has raised issues that are beyond what was presented in his appeal. The council legally cannot consider those items, and it would be inappropriate for the applicant to address issues outside of what was before the Planning Commission. It also is imperative that no specific, I know this has been repeated, that no specific project be discussed, since the council cannot legally consider any specific project as part of this appeal. There will be an opportunity for public input when the applicant's project, any applicant's project, is before the Planning Commission and the City Council. Due process mandates that the applicant be given that opportunity to present the project, at which time findings need to be made and testimony can be provided to address any issues. So we, in essence, will need to stop any testimony that addresses specific projects. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions and can also provide further evaluation after testimony.
Okay, well, I ask as we move forward with the applicant speaking and others to speak, if items are brought up that are inappropriate for us to discuss, I ask that you intervene.
Will do.
Because it's my understanding that if the wrong things are discussed, it could require legal action or result in legal action against us. Okay.
Correct.
Now, do any members of the City Council have any questions of staff right now? Okay. Then I would like to call upon Mr. Bob Nigg you have up to 10 minutes, Bob.
Thank you, City Council. I feel like I'm in the Western and you're circling the wagons.
So do I.
Okay. First of all, the appeal number one has to do with, they're saying incorrectly that I didn't address a specific property. If you look at page 211 and 212 in the agenda, my application, it has to do with project numbers PL 220074, 0025, and then PL 240080 and 0081, with the comment, it's located at 13500 block of Euclid Avenue in Fern Schaefer project. It was specifically mentioned that my appeal did involve a specific property. Now, if you go to page
Okay, wait, hang on. How do you address that? Because he does write that on the appeal.
As I mentioned, this council cannot consider, neither could the Planning Commission consider any component of a project that is not properly before the council or the Planning Commission in the prior case. The due process mandates that that part of the appeal cannot be considered. The rest of the appeal that takes issue with the director's interpretation of the code is perfectly appropriate.
Okay,
but
Bob,
before
so
a
you
project,
understand that, right?
Before
No,
a project,
I don't
Well,
understand it
okay.
because of the fact that it's their decision not to notify the developer, not mine.
The
They-
project has not come to us yet, so
It doesn't require for an interpretation. If you read pages 2 of my submission today,
Okay, your submission today was provided to us late this afternoon with no time to review it.
I understand that, and what I'm trying to bring up, if you do a Google search, artificial intelligence, and I understand artificial intelligence, but I have great more confidence in my Google searches than I do of the interpretation being presented here tonight.
Well, your Google searches won't keep us out of court. So I'm
no,
going to respect what our attorney tells us to do. So if we're not to address certain projects, I personally will not address that project, but I want to hear your appeal on the FAR versus the densities.
Then we'll come up to that on the thing, then we'll bring up the FAR during the next community public hearing on orbits. Now, back in, let me pull that out, and I apologize, there's a whole bunch there. If you read everything, and that's the point, is you can't comprehend something in 3 minutes. You can't comprehend something in 20 minutes. There's a great deal of complexity here. But back in 2003, when ordinance 23008 came before the Planning Commission, the then Director of Community Development, Nick LaCurry, put on a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And that is included in exhibits. I think it's on page 272, 273 of the agenda packet. And it had to do with adding storage units into the MDO districts. He basically says the maximum FAR of 25% for all residential and non-residential units. That was his interpretation. That was the one given to you when you voted on this ordinance. I'm not saying if there's only non-commercial in there, there's a FAR 1. But if you add residential housing, it increases the FAR. But you don't want to count that. So when you said, oh, we're going to want more open space, so instead of 3-story buildings, we're going to allow them to put 4-story buildings, but then they move it over to a 5-acre spot, and then put in a housing development, a storage facility that takes up all the space. That's contradictory and hypocritical to why we allowed 4-story buildings. It doesn't make sense. I'm looking for common sense answers. And they can say that all they want, that I can't do it. But where does it say you cannot bring it before an interpretation before it goes before the council or the planning commission? There's nothing in there. I can make an objection then, but then it's too late because they've already made the recommendation. You can bring an objection to an interpretation at any time. The attorney there hasn't presented any evidence that I couldn't do so. He hasn't presented any documented evidence that HCD has specifically required the 125 to be interpreted this way. They reviewed the housing element. That's in the report, if you would read it. And basically what it says is in the housing element, you define FAR as all buildings on a parcel. Doesn't say it defines only commercial buildings on the parcel. It says all buildings. The housing element, the 6th cycle, is the one that HCD got. They don't have the minutia and interpretation. They didn't have the presentation made before this council on April 6, 2023, at 1 hour and 21 minutes into the video. I go for facts, not interpretations that don't exist. They're saying HCD said, you got to do it this way. HCD has never addressed FAR particularly. But if you look at the law, and I have it here, it actually says, there's a law that says for affordable housing, there's a FAR requirement. And that's under paragraph 6, excuse me, paragraph Paragraph 3 was where it gives the definition of the housing element and all buildings on a facility.
What page are you looking at, Bob?
Well, that's number 5 that I sent to you today.
Well, we don't
Okay,
have
I
that.
understand, and that's why I'm saying, I'm asking not to make a decision without reviewing all the facts. And I appreciate the time, but it's on paragraph 4. State code 65, not government code 65917.2B2 basically provides up to 20% in increase in maximum allowable floor area ratio for affordable housing projects. Then you go to another government code, and you guys became aware of this, 65917.2, where it says when you have a housing development, like the one in theory in the city, that has a FAR of a 125, then and that would equate to, on a 10-acre parcel, roughly 10 acres, 430,000 feet. Well, then state code requires you to have at least 50% affordable housing. So now you have almost 1 million feet of floor area space being crunched in because the state, they made you put it in the correction to the ordinance that at least 50% of the project must be for affordable housing. So if you're allowing a FAR to go up to 1.25 without counting that, now you have a 2.5 FAR on that lot. That has no common sense. Whoever came up with that idea is contradicted by Nick, the previous development director. He included, when you're going to put a storage unit facility in there, that you include that as part of the FAR. I don't know where else you can go. And
Let me ask a real quick question. Wasn't that part of a workshop? So it was a workshop. It wasn't anything that was adopted. It was part of a workshop going through figuring out things?
No.
I want to answer.
I believe so, Mayor. So I'd like to get more clarification. I believe it's part of a workshop as we work through it. As you know, as you work through ordinance and codes and everything, you're actually working through it. So without looking at it, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe so.
That was part of a workshop. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Bob.
I'd say you can go back and look at the city council meeting of April 6, 2023, and there's a video of that. That's where I got this information.
We have workshops with councils, yes.
I know, but this was a city council meeting to pass ordinance 23008. You voted on that ordinance that day with this PowerPoint presentation.
What was the date again? April 6th?
April 6, 2023.
Okay.
It's at 1 hour and 21 minutes into the city council meeting, the video.
Okay.
Mayor, Mike just mentioned that he believes was it introduction of the ordinance, Mike?
It was the introduction of the ordinance? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, you can't just say, well, this is an interpretation. It's an interpretation of the zoning code, and it did deal with the Pacific property. That they chose not to do that, that's not on me, that's on them, and there's nothing in state law that your lawyer can quote that says a citizen cannot request an interpretation of a zoning matter, and once he gets that, he has 10 days in which to file an appeal. I did what I was supposed to do.
I don't think he's arguing with that, Bob.
Well, he is. He says I can't mention it.
Mayor,
He said I can't bring it up before.
I would suggest letting him
All right.
complete his testimony.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so basically what I'm asking is for some accountability to describe why. You can't just, what you want to do is just say no without giving a reason. I think the citizens of Chino deserve more than the minimum standards of the law. And they should even, and when there are standards, they should be able to take those and use them. Again, where in the code does it say a citizen cannot bring an appeal of an interpretation? And and I could go on, and I'm trying to cut it short, but you go online and you ask these questions, and I'll just read one. Is an interpretation by the zoning director of the four-area ratio to determine consistency with the general plan. They left that out of the topics that can be appealed. If you go to the guidebook for, and I quoted that on my rebuttal today, you go to there, they mentioned variances and ordinance, but included in that is an interpretation of it's consistency with the general plan determination. That's what I was asking for. Consistency with the general plan determination. You can do that, and it's not prevented by any law that I need to wait until it goes before the planning commission. If they felt this was particularly, since I mentioned the property, and they should have notified the developer and given him a chance, but they didn't want to do that.
You're at 10 minutes, Bob.
But, and the answer is,
You're at 10 minutes. Well, we could go on probably for 2 or 3 hours. But can you wrap it up?
yes, an interpretation by a zoning director regarding floor area ratio in mixed-use districts that impacts multiple properties would likely be considered a quasi-judicial action. A quasi-judicial action requires finding of fact. The fact that an interpretation affects more than one property strengthens the argument that it's quasi-judicial, as it involves broader impact than just one individual property. I named one property, and I didn't make that commitment, but it also expands to the other. That's why you can make it an interpretation before it comes before the planning commission. That's what I'm saying. I'm asking you to read the 18 pages I sent you today. Go back and look at the video of your own presentation that you voted on that says FAR for a storage facility includes residential and non-residential.
Okay,
Thank you. I appreciate the time and letting me extend beyond.
Thank you. I have a question of staff. Has HCD addressed FAR specifically? Do we have any findings on HCD with FAR?
As a general statewide interpretation, I am not aware of a statewide generally applicable interpretation on FAR.
Warren?
I would agree, Mayor, in terms of we had talked about earlier, as we work through the housing element process and the adoption of it, there's many things that HCD looks at, including zoning code revisions, right? They look at our zoning code to make sure it's not going to impede development. FAR is a challenging subject. It's something that is important when you analyze residential development and commercial development, and we at the city utilize it for non-residential and the higher densities. So that's what we went with HED, right? The higher density residential. No, I'm sorry, we don't utilize it for the higher density.
Yeah, you don't.
If that came out wrong.
But when we went through HCD, when they kept rejecting our housing element and sending it back because they weren't happy with it, nothing in their documentation specifically addressed FAR?
No, ma'am, not specific to FAR. It's the whole package.
Okay, and they also, when we came up with the mixed-use overlay idea, it was an overlay over commercial in hopes of we'd get improved commercial and then apartments on top that would support the commercial, correct? And then they overrode it and said it could be 100% residential with no commercial, right?
Correct.
So what was the purpose of calling it mixed use if it's gonna be all apartments? They overrode it, right?
That is part of the requirements by HCD, and as the city attorney said, HCD wants to promote, the state wants to promote residential development in the state, specifically affordable development.
Yeah, but the
Right.
problem is, kind of comment on the side, the problem is they're pushing affordable housing, but we're not getting affordable housing because of the cost of building, right? So we're getting these higher densities crammed down our throat because of state edicts, and yet we're not getting what they say their ultimate goal is, which is affordable housing. Right, it's defeating.
That is correct. And I explained before that the mandate that the legislature has imposed on all cities in the state of California is to try to create a general plan and zoning ordinances that in their wisdom believe will deliver the most chances for affordable housing by forcing higher density, by that one change you mentioned that HCD insisted on in the zoning code to allow 100% residential in a mixed-use area. When they nitpick the ordinance, They insisted that because HCD believes that's how state law should be interpreted, so that it would not prevent a developer from, using that option. They want to provide as many options for a low-income housing developer as possible without having constraints on density. As you know, density could go even in excess of 30 units an acre, which is before was never required. All
But
of the
it's
steps are.
defeating. It's defeating. If you could mandate and require like 25% affordable, I could understand it. But to just grant higher and higher density, hoping to get affordable housing, it isn't working. All we're doing is getting stack and pack.
That's so. Again, that's an argument against some of the state legislation, but we have to adopt it as is. So I would just recommend we proceed with the rest of the testimony and then address questions.
Okay, Mr. Nick has had his time. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on this issue? Yes, sir, or ma'am, I can only see a hand. Come on up.
Okay, I just got added, let me repeat what he said. The state requires a higher density that we already allow?
Ma'am, you have to
Of
face this way or we
affordable,
can't hear you.
No, I wanted to make sure I got his words right, the words right. So basically, the state is already saying that they're requiring a higher density of the affordable, and we're already doing that technically, according to most of the bills. I'm here because of the conversation that started. Thank you, first of all, thank you so much for the questions that you're asking. I'm greatly appreciative of that. But in listening to you explain the HCD and that they're very rigid, I sit here and as the residents of Chino, trying to get answers and trying to request and trying to work with our council and our planning and try to keep our city the way that we love it, and you guys too, because you live here. Obviously, you wouldn't be here and invested if you didn't. But as I heard this conversation, I felt that even though we had questions and we were basically asking, I kept feeling that we would get shut down with a rebuttal, like a response, So it kind of made me think right now, are we just not allowed to try? I mean, you're saying that they basically have rules and regulations or a standard that they're asking the state, the HCD, and we can't address it. We can't, we can't try to fight it. I mean, I know we can't do big whatever, but if we don't try, then we might as well not even sit in here. We might as well not even come to these meetings.
It doesn't do any good to address them. They can't talk to you. You have to.
Oh, no,
address
I'm not
us.
addressing them. I'm just saying that we, as in the,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
I got a little emotional here, so I'll try to bring it back down. So, I feel like we're almost being forced and held hostage to be kept in our boxes and, okay, sit in the corner and be quiet. But we live here and we have questions and we were asking, and then it's, oh, well, HCD does this and that, and they're very rigid, so we can't really address them. Yeah, we can. The gentleman's speech earlier that Susan Facchetti read, we have a free country. And thank God for his service. That's why I can stand here, and everything. Anyways, so the other thing is that you mentioned that you got some paperwork today that you were able to look at earlier this afternoon.
We have not had time to look at it, no.
Oh, okay. So that's, how does that get to you sooner? I mean, because
your person that submitted it didn't submit it until today.
So it was something that we submitted at this date versus.
And when you submit something at the last second to us that's like 18 pages or whatever it was, and it doesn't get to us until we get to the council meeting.
So
can't
then,
address
am
it.
I confused? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Am I confused to say that the appeal that was previously submitted?
This is in addition to that. It's something
Okay.
brand new today that came in.
Okay, so, but then the appeal that was previously submitted, that was reviewed by the council thoroughly?
Yes.
And everybody read it thoroughly there?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering is,
Yes.
or are we going by what staff interprets and gives you like
No,
the
we
cliff
got all that
notes?
paperwork,
The
yes.
cliff, you know. Okay. And then, let's see, I apologize, I lost my glasses.
it's
I can't
okay.
even read my own writing here. So basically then what I'd like to ask also is that since you did receive some of that information today, is that the appeal be overturned or that it be halted or whatever the proper wording is so that you can thoroughly review everything, especially now that some of the questions you've brought up yourself, stating about the density and so forth and how we're being stacked upon, basically, can
The-
be considered.
The appeal that is before us has nothing to do with the current development. It's separate from that, even though he mentions that development. That development.
Right, but I'm not just meaning the development, I'm saying the rules about wanting to change or wanting to clarify the FAR, et cetera, that part of it.
I will ask Mr. Nig, but let me ask him real quick. I'm
Yeah.
gonna break protocol.
It's not so much.
Is there anything in the document you sent today that is new information that you haven't already sent us? Is it a regurgitation of the information changed around? Is there anything brand new?
I think it's a more precise thing because when you have 400 things, in dealing with the right to have findings and facts.
So it's the same information changed around?
No.
It's detailed.
More detailed.
More detail, but it's the same basic information with more detail
If
to
you
it.
read
Can
it
he
all,
speak
it
into the
wouldn't be if you
microphone?
haven't read it
Can he
all.
speak into the
Pardon me?
microphone so
I'm
we
sorry,
can have
what?
it on the meeting record? If you could address
Okay.
in the
I'm sorry.
microphone?
If, quite apparent you weren't aware of the city council meeting back in April of 2023 where I had mentioned that. And
Well-
that's an important issue.
Bob, that's an insulting comment that I take exception to. We
It
have
doesn't
many-
mean to be
We have
insulting.
many, many meetings, and we don't remember everything that happens at every meeting, okay?
I understand, but
All right.
you were asking me if it was in the report and if you had the opportunity to read the 150 pages since last Friday when it was presented, then maybe you could understand, then you would be aware of it. But what I did is to point out some of the points of contention that they did not respond to in my appeal before the planning commission.
Okay, but what you gave today, there's no new information. It is rewritten with more detail, but it's the same basic information that you already provided to us.
Except for the right of appeal to have it heard as a quasi-judicial
Okay,
hearing.
all right.
That's in there today. I would appreciate if you read that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for letting me speak. I didn't want to walk away without.
Okay. Anyone else would like to address the council? You know, before I turn it over to the council members, I'd just like to say one thing. We all do live here, and we all care very much about this community. Some of us have larger properties and bought that property on purpose to have rooms so our kids could grow up and play, to have animals, things that we were not allowed to have in other communities. We have been accused over the years of forcing out the dairies. We did not force out the dairies. The land became very, very valuable, and the landowners chose to sell their property at a huge profit margin and move somewhere else, just like when they were in Dairy Valley and Cerritos. Same thing happened. They bought cheap, sold high, and moved here. They sold high and bought cheap and have moved somewhere else. We did not force them out. In fact, we had a right to form ordinance that we passed, even though housing developments went in some of your very areas. In the East Side Specific Plan, housing developments went in that were objected to by the people that lived there then, because it was higher density that they didn't want. And they was objected to the dairies and then complained and wanted them moved out. we actually passed a right to form ordinance saying no, they can stay as long as they want. And they did until they chose to move. But having to do what this state is cramming down our throats is not easy for us to take. And some people have whipped up the crowds to be against us with horrible accusations, which I resent very strongly, which we can't really respond to. I mean, nasty, nasty things, and they don't even know what they're talking about. We care about this community very, very deeply, all of us up here, and it's not easy to take that kind of criticism. But I will tell you something, we have spent hours and hours going through this stuff, trying to fight the state, trying to fight HCD, and have gotten rejected. I don't know how many times we presented our housing element and got kicked back because they didn't agree with it. You have a legislature in Sacramento that wants nothing but stack and pack. They don't want single-family homes. They want you out of your cars. They want their way. They want a San Francisco, LA, Washington, D.C. type development everywhere. And we're fighting that with everything that we can. I understand Mr. Nick's frustration. I understand Susan Feckety's frustration. You have no idea the fighting that we've gone through and our frustration with this nonsense. But you've got people that are fighting for you. But we're also caught between a rock and a hard place, and we have advice from our attorney on things that we can or cannot do so that we don't get sued and waste your public taxpayers' money in lawsuits. Look at Huntington Beach. They tried to fight this nonsense and lost millions and millions of dollars because the developers in the state won in the long run. Regardless of what the people want, they don't care what you want. They don't care what we want. They want what they want. So, you know, we need to work together on these things. I appreciate all the research that Bob has done. He has taken some things out of context because that's what he wants to believe. A workshop, a draft is not the law. It's not what was finally approved. We can work with the developer when that project comes forward. It hasn't come forward yet for us to do anything legally at all. Nothing. It hasn't even come to the Planning Commission yet. You know, it's my understanding that the developer hasn't even bought the land. I guess he's got an option on it. I don't really know. But it's in his, I don't know, working documents, whatever. He's going to try to make a profit, obviously. That's what businesses do. But anyway, I want you to know that this council does care very much. And the nonsense that you're reading on Facebook from some of these people is absolutely inflammatory and is absolutely ridiculous. Do they have the guts to talk to us personally? No, but they're going to write it, okay? The accusations are stupid. And you know, you have a question of us, call us and talk to us. Don't just, you know, hide behind a name on a Facebook page, for God's sakes. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Fred?
Mayor, may I make a few observations because I know some at least legal points were raised. Number one, why can't we talk about the project? I mentioned it's due process. There are Supreme Court opinions, Court of Appeal opinions. I could cite the names of the cases, but suffice it to say the courts have unanimously held that if a deciding body, whether it's a city council or planning commission, predetermines a project, a city will get sued and lose. And that happened in Hermosa Beach. Clark v. City of Hermosa Beach is sort of one of the seminal cases. City of Torrance, break zone billiards, where a developer believed that a city decision body, city council in one, planning commission in the other, had not listened to and considered all the testimony and made a decision before it was even formally before the city council. And the city got sued and lost badly and had to pay damages and had the project deemed approved. So that is why, even though the appeal does reference a project, it cannot be referenced or considered. Number two, there were questions about what about the added information that was submitted after the actual appeal was filed. The appeal really should look at the four corners of what was presented to the Planning Commission. That is what is being appealed, and that is all that really can be considered. To the extent there's additional information or additional arguments, et cetera, it's really not what was presented before the body that's being appealed from at this point. With that, I would just say that I have reviewed this at length. HCD did require a lot of changes even between the time of that initial first reading that Mr. Nigg identified in the slide, and by the time you actually had to go back and approve the ordinance that was ultimately adopted at the end of 2024, all of the requirements were specifically requirements that HCD wanted to see in that ordinance. The other point is that it's coming to me. The issues in this appeal, I know that there are a lot of citations and references. I think is fairly simple. As you drill it down to the basics, the question is, does FAR, a maximum floor area ratio, apply to residential uses? And if you look at your entire municipal code, all of your specific plans, for multifamily residential, you do not apply FAR, period. And you don't do it here in the overlays. So that is consistent with the interpretation that you have taken, the City Council, City Planning Commission has taken in reviewing the zoning code, because that's what it says throughout. The potential way to look at it as an alternative would be you are disincentivizing a project that proposes housing, including denser housing, but in a mixed-use development. So let's say I have I want to do a grocery store with different kind of apartment buildings on top, a true mixed-use, single building type use. If you interpret the code the way the appellant is seeking, you would have to look at not just the FAR for the grocery use, in my example, the corner store. You would then have to limit that development if you add all of the residential units as part of the FAR. So if you have an expert number FAR for that commercial use, and then you add all the residential, now the developer has to shrink that footprint, if that makes sense. So the concept that HCD has, and we represent several cities up and down the state, has mandated is do not put limits on somebody's interest in developing low-income housing or denser housing. So that is exactly why the floor area ratio only applies to the commercial component, because if you add the floor area of the various residential units to the maximum, it is by definition limiting the development. And HCD has argued that these mixed-use developments are necessary because to make affordable housing development, we no longer have redevelopment funds. There are not a lot of state dollars coming our way to help developers. They have to make it pencil, and one of the ways they do it is by putting in non-residential.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask council members if you have any comments or questions. Start with who? You?
This is really hard. I want to say that if it were about 4.5 years ago, I would agree with every single thing that these people were saying in here, including you, Mr. Nigg. In fact, I don't like to read agendas more than once, but I read your section of the agenda twice. It's extremely well-written and compelling. However, I've been to Sacramento, both in my former capacity and now as a city council member. And for the lady that came up here tonight and says, please go up there and fight for us. Fight, fight, fight. I, along with members of your council member, have been up in Sacramento several times in opposition to everything that's in this staff report. And sat in front of HCD, sat in front of my elected officials, and talked about how wrong this legislation is. The mayor is absolutely correct in everything that the mayor said. These numbers, the RENA numbers and the affordability, they don't add up. I'm not a real math person, but I can tell you when I look at these numbers and you play them out, the math doesn't match. And if you want to go back and look at the council meeting when we were adopting our housing element, that's exactly what I said, and that's exactly my grind with approving something that I know we statistically cannot attain. It's problematic. And one day I believe we're going to find out that the judges and all of our legislators are going to find out that none of these numbers match, and that they're going to come up with a new way to make us try and come up with these numbers again. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. So please don't sit in the audience tonight and think that any of your council members here, which is also part of our campaign platforms, what we all ran on is to abide by our general plan and different things. That being said, I think the best part of the argument from our staff is on page 200, starting with paragraph in making the arguments against the director's interpretation, and the second one, there is a purpose behind this incentive structure. That is, to me, the meat and potato of this staff report, wherein the city attorney talks about, yes, the state wants to incentivize development for these density housing because we desperately do need housing in the state of California. But let's face it, this project will be almost nil affordable. And they know that. I'm just telling you, the people at HCD and the people sitting in Sacramento understand that. The mayor's correct. We have gone up there and pleaded and fought and argued and sat across the table and pointed at each other, and we keep being told by Sacramento, in order to have a certified housing element, that these are some of the mandates we have to comply with. Mr. Nigg, I saw your slide when I was reading your report about the council meeting, and I did ask myself, did we actually approve that, or what was that? I actually think those were notes from a workshop on a slide, right? You know, I don't know. I did ask myself the same question. That's actually for council on page 272. Mr. Nigg, your appeal is extremely well-crafted and well-written, and it makes sense. The problem is it doesn't make sense to the people sitting in Sacramento and HCD, in my opinion, in sitting here. So from a perspective of a resident who lives there, like the mayor said, who cares about Chino, I love Chino. In fact, I just spoke to the Republican Party this last Saturday with Councilmember Burton on this exact issue, right, about our mandates. And you know, one of the things they asked us was, how can we help you? And I said, well, one of the things when I go to Sacramento and I hear that they're happy to be up there because they don't hear from a lot of their constituents like they had to hear at the local level. And that offends me. Because I think what people need to hear, the people in Sacramento, is from more people like you. And that's what I told them. I think Sacramento needs to hear from you. Because I think they think when we just go to them and talk to them that we've lost our minds. And I disagree. Something happens to local elected officials when they go to Sacramento, they forget where they came from. Something happens up there. So please understand that this council is fighting for you. We have been trying, but it is very hard for me to entertain the idea of accepting this appeal and knowing that our staff, after all this work, would have to go back to HCD and all these 91 units and us find ourselves in where we were in the past 3 years, fighting this, facing fines, facing opposing things, facing lawsuits like the mayor just talked about, and open up that whole Pandora's box again. My recommendation on this one is that we stick with it, and like I've told people who've called me, like Mrs. Ziegler, like anybody that's willing to meet with me, I've met with Mr. Nigg, and make sure whatever project comes before us, that we get the best project possible within the boundaries of the law. Because staying within the law is going to help us. We don't want builders doing things by right or ministerially like the mayor has talked about, or giving these builders a free pass. The best thing that we have is to put in the best housing element and the best rules that we can, and doing our best to work within those, and sitting with developers like Ms. Fekete recommended, and sitting with them and saying, give us the best project, make accommodations for us. Sometimes that may look like up, because by sometimes going up, we get better amenities. None of these are a one-size-fits-all approach. Each project's gonna look a little different depending on the community it's in. But if you don't believe it's happening, just drive through the Inland Empire. Drive to downtown Claremont to the village and see where it's at, behind the village, behind the railroad track. Look at what's happening in other communities. And you're gonna say, I don't care about other communities. I should say that. I don't care about those other police departments. I care about us. I'm just telling you, what they're mandating we're doing is very hard to stomach. And I'm passionate about it. My passion is both my biggest weakness and my strength. But I'm telling you, we are fighting and we are trying to push back. And I don't have any reason to believe in this particular case that our staff has anything to do but want to represent Chino in the same manner that we do. I don't. And I have been told by even my own family members on social media posts of being accused of being on the take, on the this, on the that. That's hard, especially from the background that I come from. So please, ladies and gentlemen, this is my plea to you. I'm not on the take. I don't have any incentivized on this from the developer, right? I don't believe our staff is, and we have been fighting for you, and we will continue to fight for you. I don't like it as much as any of you do, but this is difficult, and it's difficult for me to sit here tonight and think about asking our staff to do that. Those are my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Curtis?
Thank you, Mayor. I am not going to go through everything that Councilmember Comstock just went through. She and I have been up to Sacramento dealing with these issues, and we have also, like she had mentioned, spoke to the Republican Assembly last week talking about this very thing. I do want to thank Mr. Neg. You did a lot of work here, and I appreciate the fact that you got into the nuts and the bolts, and you did the things that you thought you needed to do here. I really appreciate it, I do. But what I want to say is, I know that our staff did as well. Our staff went out, and our staff did a lot of homework. They did a lot of detail work, as well as our planning commission. We have 7 individual people on that planning commission that all took a look at this. And I appreciate their time and their efforts on this as well. I don't agree with what's going on in Sacramento any more than anybody else does in this room. But it's something we're going to have to learn to work with at this point in time. And yeah, somebody had mentioned I'm in District 2. That is correct. I am. And I'm looking out for the best interests of not only the people in District 2, but the people of the city of Chino. So as I make my decision and my decisions from here forward on any future projects, I am going to consider all aspects of the information that we get before us and take into account the homework that everybody else has done, like our staff, like our planning commission, and Mr. Nig, you as well. As Councilmember Comstock mentioned, this is a very, very well-written appeal. I was a little surprised, actually. I don't know you very well, but I thought you were probably an attorney, and then I heard that you weren't. But I appreciate what you did and the work that you did. So that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Mark?
I sit here and I understand your frustration. I can share a little bit about, I went up to Washington, D.C. not too long ago to go lobby some folks to see if they can give us some money for some infrastructure projects. Been in talking to the folks up there. We got into California politics, and we talked about what the difference was between the national politics and the California politics. National politics, and you'll see a lot of people like Maxine Waters and these people that all came out and defund the police and everything else, and you saw how completely it blew up because it failed everywhere that they were pushing this. And now you'll see her funding police officers, giving money to LAPD, and there's a lot of people that are doing that. And I asked them, well, why is that? Why is it that at the federal level they could change their mind when they see that something isn't working, and in the state of California they can see that where they're driving us into the ground, and they continue to drive us into the ground. And they said the difference between that is because 4 or 5 seats in the House of Representatives changes the whole dynamic of the division of power. So when the House switches over to a Republican or switches over to Democrats, it's double the budget, it's double the staff, it's double everything, and it's considerably more power. And that's why people, when they see that they make mistakes, they'll switch and they'll change and they'll go into a different direction. The reason that doesn't happen in California is because they have a supermajority. They don't care if they make mistakes. If they make mistakes and things that they're passing aren't working and they're driving up crime and they're doing all these different things, it doesn't matter to them because they have a supermajority and they're never going to lose it unless different people start taking office or our representatives, the currently representatives, actually start voting with their conscience instead of their party. So that's the big difference. A lot of this stuff, you know, trust me, when I moved here to Chino, the people that were behind me was the dairy. And I really enjoyed that. But, and I remember when they built College Park, and I was at meetings where people talked about how awful it was gonna be, how the alleys were gonna cause crime and everything else, and guess what? 18 years later, I moved 1 street over, and now I live in College Park, and I love it, and there's an alley directly behind me. Now, I'm not saying that anything coming up you folks are gonna like, but I can tell you, I have a lot of great friends that live in District 2 that I worked with, that I've been friends with for over 30 years. And trust me when I tell you, all the decisions that I make are all because, one, I know what the mandates that we're going through and with the pressures that we're being forced to do. And it's not really, you know, can we fight it? We've already tried. Our housing element was supposed to be approved, you know, almost 3 years ago. And we were threatened and threatened and threatened that we were gonna get fined and fined and fined, that we lost opportunities for grants because we weren't passing it. And then finally we passed it. So is it something that we like? No. Is it something that we fought? We tried, and we basically lost. And so when you guys sit up here, and trust me, we're as frustrated as you are. Yeah, and I can tell you, you know, when I first got on the council, there was a development up north that the people didn't want up there. And one of the first major decisions that me and Mark Hargrove did back then was we chose to vote it down. The project came back. It's worse. It's worse now than it was when they first presented it to us. So that's always something that everybody's got to consider. But when you sit down with a whatever potential developer, you always try to get the best project that you can get. You always sit there and try to negotiate. You know, we're not at that point yet. But I can tell you that, you know, a lot of the stuff that's being mandated to us by the state of California, I don't like. But at the same time, am I willing to throw away millions of dollars of your monies in order for us to get sued like Huntington Beach? No. You know, especially if I know we're gonna lose. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff. I don't agree with the majority of the stuff. And that, not just housing, I'm talking about public safety. I mean, you name it, we're going down the wrong path, but all I can do is try to get the best that we can get for us. I appreciate Mr. Nips. I saw your appeal. You put in a lot of work. But, you know, I can't, just like our attorney said, I can't focus on a development that isn't before us. I have to only focus on the FAR and currently what state law requires from us. But I appreciate all your work. I appreciate everybody coming out here. You know, but the frustration that we have up here, you know, that unfortunately some of these things are out of our hands, and really it's our representatives that do it to us in Sacramento, and even when they know it's wrong, if they vote the party line, they'll vote the party line, you know, or if it's even wrong to the point where they don't want to vote, they just abstain, knowing that it's already a supermajority, they're going to get it anyway. But they're right. If you guys really want to take a stand, I would suggest reaching out to our assembly person, our state senator, and really start making your voices known that what they're voting on and what they're passing, especially with Mr. Weiner is up there in Northern California, and he's passing some legislation that's going up there that's just, in everything is bad. But he wants to be the next, housing czar. He wants to take over for, what's our congresswoman? No, our extremely liberal congresswoman that's always on, what's her name? No, it's up in San Francisco, so he wants to take over when she retires. She was our former Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi. So he wants to take over for Nancy Pelosi, so he wants to be as radical as he can, and those are the laws that we're getting passed through him. But I want to thank you guys for coming out, and that's all the comments I have.
Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess I just want to first start off by saying thank you to everyone who's come out, had public comment on this. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Every other council member and their mayor has mentioned this already. I agree with everything they've said. I myself, I've been up to Sacramento, right? We've sat in those rooms, and many times they just, accept you, and they hear you, and they smile, and we come back down to Chino, and it's like, did they really ever listen to us? But again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. For those of you who don't know, our assembly member is Michelle Rodriguez, right? Our senator is Susan Rubio. You can write those names down, and along with us, you can send letters of denial or acceptance if you agree with some of the policies that are being made up in Sacramento. I feel disheartened because when we first walked in this room, it was completely full, and as these conversations keep happening, people keep kind of dwindling out, and I think that's because there's an answer that maybe many of you or many people who walked out were looking for that we just can't speak on today because that particular issue is not before us today. The mayor's mentioned many times before that we don't have a crystal ball, and only if we had a crystal ball, how much life easier would be. I think about that a lot because there are, many, again, as mentioned before, Mr. Nig, a lot of great arguments that are being made, and I think to myself, I wish we would have heard this perspective 4 years ago, 3 years ago, as we were going through the housing element update and, everything that comes along with that. So again, just thank you to everyone who's come out. We definitely hear you. I'm not sure about the rest of the council, but I'm a social media freak, and I'm always on Facebook and reading some of your guys' comments up there, and I think a lot of it comes out of frustration and emotion. Many times I want to go in there and chime in myself, but I have to restrain from that. So again, your voices are being heard. Thank you for coming out, and that'll conclude my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any last comments from council members or staff? Okay, we have a staff recommendation before us. I would entertain a motion as second or an alternative motion. Karen?
I'll make the motion to accept the staff recommendation, Mayor.
Okay, there's a motion from Councilperson Comstock.
I'll second that, Mayor.
There's a second from Councilmember Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lucio.
What was that?
For the vote.
Oh. Yes.
Councilmember Flores.
Yes.
Councilmember Comstock.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burton.
Yes.
Mayor Ulloa.
Yes.
The item passes.
Item passes unanimously. Thank you again for coming out. We're going to continue to work on things. Again, that project has not come before the Planning Commission yet or the council. I recommend that you stay involved. Mr. Nig has a lot of information. Continue to work with him. And hopefully, Bob, you can get get your group together and have a meeting with the developer. Okay, with that, we will move on to council and mayor reports. I'm going to go through mine quickly. Wednesday, April 2nd, I attended the Omnitrans and SPCTA Board of Directors meetings. I also attended a meeting with the Chino Valley School District representatives to discuss the future general plan issues regarding school needs. Saturday and Sunday, April 5th and 6th, I attended our Chino Days celebration event, and I want to compliment staff on an excellent event. A lot of our city members participated, and I think it turned out phenomenally well. Monday, April 7th, I filmed several months' worth of the mayor's message broadcast, and then that evening attended the Chino Valley Swaptimists Bingo fundraiser. Tuesday, April 8th, along with Councilmember Comstock and staff, attended our legislative committee meeting where we were briefed on upcoming legislation. And again, I certainly encourage our community to get involved in writing their objection to some of these absolutely insane laws that are being proposed. Wednesday, April 9th, I attended the mayor's prayer breakfast, and that afternoon attended the Chick-fil-A Employee Scholarship Award event. Thursday, April 10th, I attended Omnitrans Administrative and Finance Committee meeting and SPCA Transit and Metro Valley Committee meetings. And then on Friday, April 11th, along with Mayor Pro Tem Burton, Councilmember Flores, and staff, we attended the groundbreaking of the new location for the Caris Church and the retail center that will be constructed on Oaks, south of Edison Avenue near Chaffey College. It's been, I think, 40 years in the making, and everybody's really excited to see that development finally move forward. And I want to thank Henry Hung for his patience and staff for all their hard work in bringing that project to finally a groundbreaking status. And that's all I have this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 2nd, I met with staff at Chino Unified School District board members to discuss our general plan updates. After that, I attended the Planning Commission meeting. On the 3rd, I attended the Chino Basin Desalter Authority board meeting. And then after that one, I attended the IEUA Policy Committee meeting. The 4th through the 6th, I'm sorry to say that I was not able to attend Chino Days as I traveled to Baker to participate with our Chino Police Department relay team on the Baker to Vegas weekend. This is when law enforcement runs 120 miles through the desert from Baker up the back way into Las Vegas. It can be pretty grueling. The legs are about 5 to 6 miles, some are even 10 miles each. But I'm proud to say that our Chino Police Department relay team came in 4th in their division, which is pretty amazing. They did a great job, a lot of diligence, and I'm telling you that they were awesome. I'm very proud. And I wanted to thank my wife as well for traveling with me. We were in the support van. As I was following our runners, my wife was offering water to the runners and hosing them down with a Hudson sprayer, and we had a good time. The 9th, I attended the mayor's prayer breakfast, and then I attended the meeting in reference to some water concerns with the city of Ontario and Montclair and their city staff. On the 10th, I attended a water master meeting with staff. On the 11th, I, along with the mayor and Councilmember Flores, attended the groundbreaking for Gateway Caris Church out in front of Chaffey College by the roundabout. That's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of things now as a result of that development that goes in for the college, for the apartment complex, for the park, everybody involved, but it's going to be a really great project when it's completed. On the 12th, I attended the Chino Valley Republican Assembly with Councilmember Comstock. We answered a lot of their questions and offered updates to what was going on within our city, as well as Sacramento. On the 14th, I attended the Water Facilities Authority meeting, and then I attended a meeting with the Chino Boxing board members Councilmember Lucio and our staff. I attended my one-on-one with the city manager after that. And then prior to the city council meeting this evening, I was in closed session. And that's all I have, Mayor. Oh, and one more thing. I'd like to offer my condolences to the Youngquist family. I worked very closely with Judge Ray Youngquist. He was a class act. He was very fair, but very, very firm up there, up on the stand, and he was an amazing judge. So my condolences to the family and friends of Judge Youngquist.
He was an amazing man.
Yes, he was.
Councilmember Comstock.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to forego my report tonight to only congratulate the art winners this evening and their amazing submissions, both for the art project and for the chalk art project. And I would also like to express my condolences to the entire Youngquist family. I as well appeared before Judge Youngquist right next door in the Chino Superior Court, and many times he was a very, very intelligent and wise man, as well as I walked into this room one night for some service club event, and there used to be a piano over here. Yeah. And he was actually playing the piano. I didn't know it was him, but he was actually basically pelting out beautiful pieces of music from Cats and different things that were phenomenal. He did, yeah, all by ear, didn't read music, just a very, very good man. And also I was friends for a long time with his wife Alice as a member of the Seroptimus Club. So just a big loss to our community and to their family, and my condolences to them. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep mine fairly short. I would like to give my condolences to the Youngquist family as well. I never had a chance to appear before Judge Youngquist, as Karen and Kurt have. But I do want to share just one experience. I see my friend Charlene is in the crowd, and because of her, I was introduced to Judge Youngquist and Alice Youngquist as well. And Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that he was very fair and firm, but the many times I went out to have lunch with himself and Alice together, I always saw a different side of him. I remember one time he was complaining about his food or something like that, and he says, addressing his food, and he says, "Mom, this isn't what I ordered." And I look over at Charlene, and I think to myself, who's he talking to? Who's Mom? And well, that's how he addressed his wife Alice, by Mom. And I just thought that was very cute. So I never saw fair and firm. I saw funny and polite, I guess I can say. But that being said, again, I just want to give my condolences to the Youngquist family, and that concludes my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Lucio.
I too am going to forego my report and just give my condolences to the Youngquist family and congratulations to the Chino PD Baker to Vegas team. Thank you.
City Manager Reich.
No report tonight, Mayor.
City Attorney Galante.
No report either. Thank you.
Chief Minson.
Fundraiser for a really good cause, and I know I talked about it a few weeks ago, reference the tragic murder of Clarissa Cano. So I'll let Corporal Wright talk about the fundraiser, and I'll pass out the flyer.
Yeah, want to spread the news about this fundraiser, but also brag a little bit about our officers that serve this community. In hearing about this poor Chino born and raised family who had tragedy strike, my phone, while away from the city, was blowing up from our officers asking me, so what are we going to do? That's pretty awesome to have the officers that serve this community see something pretty tragic, and their hearts are going out above and beyond, and they're asking us, so what are we doing? It's already expected, put it together. So I grit my teeth because then it's up to me to plan it, but here we are. April 30th, all day from 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., we officers at Chino PD are going to be doing our best to serve food and drinks. Our best, I said, we're not going to be doing great at it, at Roscoe's Famous Deli over in Chino Hills. We've partnered with their staff before, and these guys also reached out to us and said, so what are we doing? So lining those two dots together, easy thing to plan, and reaching out to the family. Chief and I spoke to the family last week, and a heartfelt thank you already, but seeing the hope and light in their eyes come back a little bit, to see the chief of police and some officers there saying, hey, we're doing our best to help on the report side of stuff. We'll answer questions regarding insurance, but we want to partner alongside you guys, your family. And so seeing them already, before we've even done anything, express the level of gratitude that they're showing towards us this is going to be a win-win for everyone. So community, please put down in your calendars Wednesday, April 30th from 11 a.m. to 9:30, Roscoe's Famous Deli. We'll be taking donations there, and then proceeds on top of what Roscoe's typically makes on a Wednesday is coming.
Uh-oh, it went out.
Alex, thank you, that's amazing. I'm gonna be at Cal Cities that week, but I have a donation for you tonight, so hit me up after the meeting.
Now it's back on. No, now it's out. Okay. Kevin, before you leave, if he gets a microphone, for the audience's sake, please review the situation that took Clarissa.
Yeah, so the Ontario Police Department was involved in a vehicle pursuit of a wanted subject that was wanted for burglary, on parole for burglary, and driving a stolen vehicle. And the vehicle was traveling in excess of 80 miles an hour southbound on Euclid Avenue, driving on the wrong side of the road.
Mountain Avenue.
I'm sorry, what I said, Mountain Avenue, driving on the wrong side of the road at Walnut Avenue, and broadsided the vehicle that Clarissa was driving in. Clarissa never saw it coming. And so she was tragically killed at the intersection. You can see now, it took both of the cars went into the southeast corner. You can see the memorial that's been set up. It's a sad situation. She leaves a 5-year-old daughter behind. She was also the caretaker of her younger siblings because their mother had passed away from cancer the end of last year. And so, and these are Chino residents. They all have attended our schools. They attended Chino High School. The younger brother is in 8th grade. My wife was his math teacher last year at Magnolia Junior High. And so, like I said, this is our community, our part of who we are. And again, like Corporal Wright said, I mean, just to be able to sit down with them at their kitchen table and talk about it and just their appreciation. So,
Yeah,
very
thank
tragic.
you. And thank you, Alex, for what the association is doing. Do we have a director's report this evening? Of course we do.
Yeah, I just have one very quick update. As we've been talking about IUA's rate, the rate increase will be considered by the full board tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at IUA board council board meeting. So IUA is located on Kimball Avenue. I'm sure you guys will all Google it. It's at 10 a.m.
Okay. Fred, I'd like to ask a question, and that is, we have discussed it several times. I don't know where we stand on this, but I would like information brought back on how to change the fact that we have to do the 218 vote for them increasing rates. This needs to be thrown back on their shoulders so that they have to directly answer for decisions they make. So I would like you to bring forward information on how we go about doing that ASAP.
Will do.
Thank you. We have anybody? Oh, Dave Williams, you're here, Fire Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to mention May 3rd, open house at the Fire Training Center, so come on, May 3rd.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn in the memory of Judge Raymond Youngquist. You've heard quite a bit about him this evening. One thing that wasn't mentioned was that he was always dressed to the nines. I mean, that man was impeccable. And Alice, it was mentioned how long they had been married. They were quite a cute couple. I mean, he did call her mom. She did everything for that man. I don't think that man could pick out his socks because Alice did everything for him. When they traveled, she had everything ready for him. They were just so close. So I asked that special prayers be in your mind for her especially, because they were so close, just so close. And I know she is just devastated by his loss, but he was quite a character, just a class act, right? I mean, just a class man. He'll be really, really missed. So our next regular meeting of the council will be held on Tuesday, May 6th at 6 o'clock in our council chambers with closed session no earlier than 4 if needed. With that, we are adjourned.